What drives a civilization to carve messages into the earth so massive, they could only be seen by eyes in the sky? And if they weren't meant for their own people, who were they meant for? In the vast emptiness of Peru's Nazca Desert, lies one of humanity's greatest riddles: colossal patterns, perfectly straight lines, and figures of animals and beings, etched into the land as if to outlast time itself. But what if the Nazca Lines weren't just expressions of art or faith? What if they were a message not to the gods above but to us, here and now? Today, we journey into the desert to uncover a mystery written across centuries and ask, what were they trying to tell us? How did an ancient civilization, with no drones, planes, or satellites, manage to create massive artworks only visible from the sky? In the heart of Peru's desert lies a mystery carved into the earth, the Nazca Lines. Thousands of feet long, perfectly straight, and spanning across miles of barren land. But here's the catch: you can't truly see them unless you're flying. Some of these geoglyphs stretch over 1,200 feet, which is longer than 3 football fields. The hummingbird, for example, measures about 300 feet from wing to wing. The monkey coils with intricate spiral curves, and the spider is formed with incredible symmetry. And yet, they were made by people with no aerial perspective, no GPS, and no modern tools. How did they achieve such precision? Researchers believe the Nazca people used simple tools: wooden stakes, rope, and an exceptional understanding of geometry. Some lines are perfectly straight, even across hills and valleys. To do this, they would mark points on the ground, connect them with rope, and scrape away the top layer of dark desert pebbles, exposing the pale earth beneath. And yet, the real marvel isn't just how they were made, it's how they stayed intact for over 1,000 years. There are over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric shapes, and more than 70 biomorphic figures, animals like birds, monkeys, fish, and even what some believe are human-like beings. Some shapes span entire hillsides. Others are so fine and delicate, it's hard to believe they've survived the test of time. The precision, the scale, and the variety, all created in a harsh, arid environment. Why would a civilization put so much effort into something only the sky could appreciate? The biggest question remains is that, why design something only visible from the air when you can't fly? This is where the theories take off. Some say the lines are messages to the gods above. Others believe they served as ritual paths, only visible from mountain tops. While the boldest theory is that they were made for beings who could see them from the sky, extraterrestrials. Whether the Nazca Lines were art, ritual, or message, one thing is clear: the scale and complexity challenge our understanding of what ancient people were capable of. And maybe, they weren't just thinking of the earth and were speaking to the skies. What if the Nazca Lines weren't made for gods or aliens, but for something hidden right beneath our feet? When we think of the Nazca Lines, most of us hear about alien landing strips or star maps. But what if the truth is stranger, and closer to home? One theory gaining attention suggests the Nazca Lines were actually giant hydrological diagrams, but not just general water symbols. Could these lines have been functional maps of complex subterranean water systems? Researchers have found that many of the lines correspond to ancient aquifers and underground channels. Some believe the shapes guided the Nazca people in constructing puquios, spiral-shaped wells that tapped into deep water sources. In this sense, the Nazca Lines weren't just symbolic, they were part of a massive engineering blueprint helping a civilization survive in one of the driest places on Earth. Imagine if the lines weren't meant to be seen at all, but heard. A radical theory proposes that the Nazca Desert was used as a kind of giant musical instrument. Walking or running along specific lines could create rhythmic vibrations across the ground, producing sounds that resonated through the earth or into the air. Could the Nazca have used these lines for sound-based rituals, meant to connect with spiritual forces through vibration? It sounds wild, but ancient cultures around the world have long combined geometry with sound in sacred practices. Some researchers believe the Nazca Lines were pathways for altered states of consciousness. Picture this: a shaman walks these lines during intense rituals, fasting, chanting, or under the influence of sacred plants. The act of moving along these giant patterns could induce a trance, helping the shaman walk between worlds or communicate with ancestors and spirit beings. This theory shifts the focus from what the lines look like from above to how they were experienced on foot. What if the lines weren't about gods, aliens, or magic at all, but about people? Another theory sees the creation of the lines as a form of social glue. In a harsh desert environment, building these massive geoglyphs could have brought scattered communities together, strengthening alliances through shared work on sacred art. It wasn't the finished design that mattered most, it was the collaboration, the act of working side by side towards something greater than themselves. Maybe the true purpose of the Nazca Lines wasn't just to send a message into the sky, but to connect people to their land, their water, their spirits, and each other. In the end, the lines might be more than a mystery. They could be a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, humans create to survive. Could the Nazca Lines have been created using tools or techniques that we no longer understand? We've all heard the story: wooden stakes, ropes, and simple measurements. But what if the truth about how the Nazca Lines were made is more complex and more mysterious? One fringe yet fascinating idea is that the Nazca people may have taken to the skies literally. Some researchers have proposed that ancient Peruvians could have built hot air balloons using lightweight materials like cotton and reeds, fueled by fire pits. Could simple balloon flights have allowed them to observe their work from above, adjusting, correcting, and perfecting these massive designs? While no direct evidence of ancient Nazca balloons has been found, the materials would have quickly decomposed, leaving little trace. And experiments today have shown that basic balloons could be built using technology available at the time. Another theory suggests the Nazca may have had access to primitive optical tools, simple lenses made from polished quartz or obsidian that could magnify their view across distances. If the Nazca people understood how to use natural magnifiers, they could have achieved astonishing precision by observing distant alignment points. This idea ties to other ancient cultures that may have used polished stone or crystal for enhanced vision, long before the invention of modern lenses. Let's think beyond physical tools. Could the Nazca Lines have been designed using sacred geometry principles passed down from earlier civilizations? Some believe that the creators of the lines were working from mental blueprints based on proportions like the golden ratio or other mathematical constants. By embedding these universal patterns into the desert, they weren't just making art, they were creating a kind of cosmic code on the Earth's surface, using intuitive knowledge of shapes and ratios that modern engineers still admire. What if the Nazca weren't working randomly, but following an invisible grid, a natural or energy-based map beneath the surface of the Earth? Some researchers speculate that ancient people were sensitive to the Earth's geomagnetic fields or natural energy lines, which some calls it the ley lines. They may have mapped their designs according to these forces, creating harmonious patterns that aligned with the planet itself. This would explain why many geoglyphs seem to fit the landscape in ways we don't fully understand today. The mystery of how the Nazca Lines were made reminds us of one thing. Ancient people were far more innovative and far more in tune with their world than we often give them credit for. Whether through lost technology, sacred geometry, or Earth's hidden forces, the Nazca Lines challenge us to rethink what primitive really means. Could the massive Nazca geoglyphs have been more than art or ritual? What if they were the ultimate survival tool, built to save a dying civilization? In one of the driest places on Earth, the Nazca Desert, water is life. And some researchers believe the giant lines in the ground might have been part of a complex, life-saving code. The Nazca people lived in a region that could go years without rain. Yet, their society thrived for centuries. How? Beneath the desert lies a hidden network of ancient aquifers, underground rivers that provide the only reliable source of water. Some experts believe the Nazca Lines, especially the straight lines and trapezoidal shapes, were giant markers, signals showing the location of these underground water channels. When viewed from nearby hills, the lines could have served as a visual map, guiding people to places where they could dig wells or build puquios, ancient spiral aqueducts that tapped into these water reserves. Beyond marking water sources, what if the lines were paths for ritual walks, designed to invoke rain? Some lines form long, continuous paths that could have been walked during ceremonies dedicated to water deities. By physically tracing the lines across the desert, participants might have symbolically called the rain or honored the forces that controlled it. Evidence of similar rainmaking rituals exists in other ancient cultures, from Africa to Australia, so why not in Nazca? It sounds ironic, but flash floods can be deadly even in deserts. Some of the Nazca Lines, especially the large trapezoids, may have functioned as flood control markers. These shapes could have indicated natural catchment areas where rare rainwater would collect, helping the community quickly gather it or divert it to storage pits. In this view, the geoglyphs weren't just spiritual, they were practical guides in times of extreme, sudden rain. There's another idea: the lines could represent a mythical water network, mapping the Nazca people's spiritual understanding of how water flows both above and below ground. The geoglyphs might mirror the invisible movement of water beneath the desert, a sacred map of life's hidden veins. Walking these lines during rituals could have been a way to symbolically interact with water's power and show respect to the forces, keeping their civilization alive. In the end, whether practical, spiritual, or both, the Nazca Lines remind us of this truth. For the Nazca, survival wasn't just about finding water, but it was about honoring it, mapping it, and working in harmony with nature's hidden forces. How could delicate lines, scratched into the desert floor by an ancient civilization, survive more than 1,500 years of wind, storms, and time itself? The Nazca Lines are one of archaeology's most enduring wonders. But the secret to their preservation might surprise you. The first factor? The Nazca Desert's extreme climate. It's one of the driest places on Earth, receiving as little as 1 inch of rain per year. Without water to wash them away, the shallow grooves that make up the geoglyphs have remained largely undisturbed. The desert's stable air means almost no strong winds. And without wind or water to erode the fragile lines, they've endured for centuries as if frozen in time. Another overlooked secret? The Nazca people created the lines by scraping away the dark, sunburned pebbles that cover the desert surface, called desert varnish, to reveal the lighter soil beneath. Over time, that lighter earth hardened into a protective crust, thanks to the sun's intense heat baking the surface. This natural seal acts like a shield, helping preserve the lines against the occasional breeze or footstep. And in places, a thin layer of the dark pebbles has blown back into the grooves, camouflaging them and offering even more protection. Dating the Nazca Lines has been one of archaeology's greatest challenges. Because they're carved into the ground, rather than built up with organic material, traditional methods like radiocarbon dating can't be directly applied. But here's where it gets fascinating. Scientists have dated artifacts found at Nazca ceremonial sites, pottery styles associated with the culture, and organic debris near the lines. These clues point to the lines being created between 500 BCE and 500 CE, making some of them over 2,000 years old. But recent studies of weathering patterns suggest some figures might have been refreshed or added to across generations, meaning the lines may represent not one, but many centuries of Nazca tradition. Believe it or not, modern humans have actually helped preserve the Nazca Lines, sometimes accidentally. Because the area is so remote, few people walked over the geoglyphs for most of history. And for centuries, local communities respected the lines as sacred, avoiding them or integrating them into traditional stories that kept them safe. It wasn't until the 20th century, with the rise of air travel and tourism, that people even realized how striking the lines were from above. Today, preservation efforts include drones, 3D scanning, and restricted access zones, all designed to protect these ancient artworks for future generations. The Nazca Lines have survived thanks to nature's protection, human respect, and a bit of luck. But as the world changes, with climate shifts and increased human activity, new challenges could threaten this fragile wonder. Thanks to modern technology, archaeologists are uncovering new lines, shapes, and figures that could completely rewrite what we thought we knew about the Nazca people. For decades, most Nazca geoglyphs were discovered by accident, spotted by pilots or researchers from small planes. But today, drones equipped with high-resolution cameras are mapping the desert like never before. Since 2018, teams using drones and AI analysis have identified dozens of previously unknown geoglyphs, smaller, fainter, and harder to spot from above. These include humanoid figures, cats, snakes, and even birds never before associated with Nazca art. What's exciting? Many of these newly discovered lines are thought to be older than the famous, larger geoglyphs, possibly marking an earlier stage of Nazca culture or even a different group entirely. In 2020, archaeologists were shocked when drones revealed a massive cat geoglyph etched onto a hillside. Stretching over 120 feet, the feline figure had been hidden in plain sight, eroded and nearly invisible to the naked eye. Experts believe the cat dates from 200 to 100 BCE, making it older than many of the more famous figures. What's more, its style is distinct, suggesting that different generations or communities added their artistic layers to the desert over time. Beyond drones, artificial intelligence is now helping decode the Nazca mystery. By scanning thousands of aerial images, AI programs are detecting patterns that the human eye might miss. This has led to the discovery of previously unknown trapezoids, spirals, and zigzag lines buried under centuries of dust and erosion. And it raises a new question: could there be hundreds more geoglyphs we've yet to find, waiting under the desert surface? The recent discoveries are changing how we see the Nazca Lines. They suggest that what we call the Nazca culture may have been a collection of groups, each contributing to this desert canvas over centuries. And they challenge the idea that these geoglyphs were created during a short period. Instead, the desert may have been a sacred canvas in constant evolution, updated by generation after generation. These finds also hint at purposes we hadn't considered: territorial markers, clan symbols, or messages meant only for those who lived in the region. As technology continues to peel back the layers of the Nazca Desert, one thing is clear: the mystery of the Nazca Lines is far from solved, and the most incredible discoveries may still be hidden beneath the sand. Despite decades of study, these massive geoglyphs hold secrets that continue to baffle archaeologists, scientists, and adventurers alike. One of the strangest unsolved mysteries? Many Nazca lines seem to start and stop abruptly, cutting across the desert but ending with no clear destination. Why would a civilization put effort into carving out giant paths that appear incomplete or meaningless? Some suggest they could represent celestial alignments now lost to time, or perhaps they formed a ritual landscape that no longer matches today's topography. Others wonder, did these lines lead to structures or sacred sites that have since disappeared under sand or erosion? Among the hundreds of geoglyphs, there are a few that don't fit the classic Nazca style. Some figures look more abstract or humanoid, with strange proportions and features unseen in other Nazca art. Take the so-called astronaut figure, a large being with round eyes and an outstretched hand. Is this a symbolic deity, a shaman in ceremonial dress, or something else entirely? Why does it stand apart from the animals and geometric forms surrounding it? Another mystery, how did the techniques for creating these lines vanish so completely? The Nazca people left no known written records explaining how they designed or built the lines. Unlike many ancient cultures, we don't see the method passed down or copied by neighboring groups. It's as if the knowledge was deliberately kept secret, or was lost during a sudden cultural collapse we don't fully understand. What could have caused this disappearance of know-how? Disease, drought, conquest, or something more unusual? Here at SA Theory few talk about, what if the Nazca lines were designed to change with the desert itself? Could shifting sands, seasonal winds, or even rare rain events have been part of the process, gradually revealing and concealing different patterns over generations? In this view, the Nazca lines weren't static art, but a living landscape, a giant canvas that evolved in partnership with nature. If true, we may have already lost parts of the puzzle forever. The Nazca lines remind us that, for all our modern technology, some ancient mysteries refuse to be solved. Maybe that's their greatest power, to challenge what we think we know, and keep us searching.